Okay.
We're live now, man.
I thought about this. I wanted to talk about Rebels, but I wanted to kind of make it where I connect it to what I like about it. And then my broad question for you guys. So I'm gonna like kind of rant for a minute, but my question for you guys to think about as I'm ranting is there a show, a movie, or it could be anything that watched, listened to, like I said, read, that it just kind of on a more deeper level than just like you watch it from week to week or you watched it that one time and it just like it opens you up to so many other things. So for me, to give an example, I was never really a Star Wars fan before Rebels. I was more of like okay, yeah, Star Trek's there, I'll watch it. Eh. And then Star Wars, it was like I had this kind of naive fondness of the prequels from just younger. And then I saw Rebels, and I was like, wow, there's more of a deeper story to this. And that's when I gave Clone Wars a chance, the cartoon anime series.
Wait. You're saying Star Wars is more than just trade disputes?
Yeah. But so once I got into Rebels, I wanted to get into Clone Wars. And then once I got into, a little bit into Clone Wars, I didn't like it as much as Rebels. But once I got into that, I was like, okay, I want to rewatch the prequels. Then I said, okay, I see why people don't like these as much. Then I went back to the originals. I had seen the originals before, but when I was younger, and I was like, okay, wow. And that's when I really got hyped for Force Awakens. And then now I'm just obsessed with it all. So like, what is there something like that for you guys that you can point to and say, hey, that thing made me really like this franchise or whatever. But just to say, I say it all the time, and it's all over my Twitter, and I do a column for the GWW, and I said it this week in my column for the show. Do it. I love the show so much. It's just has shocked me. It's kind of like brought a childishness out of me. See I hate panning it by saying it how an animated series is making me excited every week, but I want to give it more credit than that, and it deserves more credit than that. The writing, the characters, the voice work is all just top notch, just absolutely top notch. And it's not a surprise anymore to me.
Right, and it exceeds the. I think it exceeds the feeling that comes along with being a follower or being an enjoyer of a great cartoon. Right, it's an animated spoke of a very broad and deep, ongoing epic, right, an odyssey, and its awareness that it ties into those characters. And I don't know. I don't know that I've ever had that feeling because for me, and it's a little jaded, right? But I always feel like once you cross the barrier from live action canon into animated, like then that's an appendix, right, to the primary core lore, and sometimes I get into it. But it's always as an adjunct, and so I've really been amazed by your journey and the journey of some others who have really gotten deep into this stuff, and like can quote it and talk about like the threads in it with as much fervor as people talk about like 2.5-hour movie experiences, right?
Yeah.
But no, I don't get it. I haven't had a similar. I guess the closest thing to it, and I've never stayed on these, but so one of the biggest pieces of content that forms my matrix is Buffy and Angel, and the closest thing akin to it, I think, is when those universes were extended into comics, and because I was sad to see both of them end. And that was a way to extend that universe and extend that compassion for those characters. But it's still not quite what yours is, because like I said, I've read a few of those issues here and there. I've never bought them in trade, and I've never made them part of my recurring pull for any length of time. I don't know. Any of you other guys got anything similar?
Yeah, kind of. So aside from Rebels, of course, but I got into the Firefly comics that came out in yeah, they're right here. Yeah, got the 4 volumes of those.
Yeah, those are like just like in the past 2 years, right?
Maybe, yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
the past few years. But they do a really good job of extending the story, kind of answering some questions. And the same is true of Avatar: The Last Airbender, that cartoon. The Dark Horse also picked up the comics, and it's not a month to month or anything like that, but they come out with these stories, and it's really good, and it's really enjoyable. So any time that I think that as a franchise that you can branch off into different media, I think that just makes your product that much better. Obviously there is an oversaturation point. For instance, I am done with Disney princesses. But I mean, at the same time, though, joking aside, there's another example of something where there is all sorts of different types of media for whatever your kid might, or you might want to check out. There's some of the comics, there's games, there's puzzles, there's a plethora of media, and I think that really makes it a stronger brand.
I'll mention maybe there's a little bit of that feeling I get too when I do play a game that's an extension of a licensed universe, and it's done well. Like I played Star Trek Voyager Elite Force, which like created a new character, but you were exposed to characters from that show, and kind of got to play opposite like those personalities that you saw from week to week. I want to say, when I played Amazing Spider-Man, it got to web sling around New York and stuff, and again kind of play opposite a lot of those characters that you saw on the big screen, and then routinely we're familiar with in the comics. And I want to say, and I guess Aliens versus Predator too. The one good one that there's been, where you played a colonial. This was like an early 2000s game, or mid 2000s game, and you played as a colonial marine. It was the game where you could play, at least in multiplayer, you could play as the marine, the alien, or the predator. And I think it actually had three different single player campaigns in it.
Was that the one where if you selected the alien, you started out as the face hugger, and then you?
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
I remember that. Man, yeah. I had such high hopes for that game, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it wasn't great in comparison to some other games, but it was one of the better Aliens versus Predator games. Graphically was good, but I guess the thing I really liked about it is it really revealed a couple of things that, unless you had watched all of like that 20th Century Fox media, it revealed a lot of things about that universe, right? The Weyland-Yutani Corporation, and kind of how terraforming got started, and the whole notion that the xenomorphs were engineered. I think that game is where I found that out, that they were originally engineered by the company, and kind of more of how like the Predators operated, and the fact that there were more than just like 5 of them, right? Which really kind of upped the scare factor. But yeah, so I guess I have gotten into maybe not directly animated versions, but extensions of licensed universes. I don't know, Dave. What about you?
honestly, I think I'm the odd one out where I can't think of any direct example, but I feel like the Power Rangers comic books got me back into watching the original TV show.
So what are your thoughts on the trailer for the upcoming movie?
And we talked about that last week, if you remember.
On this show? Or I can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, your grotesque disappointment.
Yeah.
I will beat a hasty retreat. Jonathan, back to you.
But yeah.
So what else? What else in Star Wars have you gotten into, Jonathan? And let me also ask. So you said you weren't a Star Wars guy.
Yeah.
I guess the classic question is, were you a Star Trek guy, or you just weren't into any of it?
I leaned Star Trek at the time. Don't really have a reason. It was because mainly my dad was more of a Star Trek person, and still is. But then once I started watching Star Wars, I just that I'm definitely Star Wars all the way now. Like I'm like everybody else, excited for Rogue One.
We need to convert you to dark matter now too.
Yeah, exactly.
But I definitely, because of Star Wars, I would never have like looked into the comics. So like Star Wars Kanan was, I think Peter actually pointed me toward that one. That's a really good comic. And then Darth Vader, which I didn't like as much, but a solid comic. So it got me into other parts of Star Wars I never really thought of going into. Like I want to get the new book on Ahsoka. So like stuff like that I would never have thought of doing. And all these characters aren't in the main line Star Wars stuff, like the original trilogy, the new trilogy, the prequels. All these characters are within the realm of Clone Wars and Rebels. I will read anything and consume anything that has to do with Ezra, Kanan, Hera, and I just have I care about those characters so much. I don't know why. I don't feel the same way with shows like Flash, Arrow. I really like those shows, but I don't have like this like deep affection for them where I just would go all out to watch everything, read everything about it. I don't know. It's I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Well, the one thing I was going to mention is it's as we talked all around this. So of course the obvious thing would be those of us who have been into comics, right? Come at it from the other vector, right? Yeah. Those of us who have been into comics, and certainly people who have read books in novel format, right? And then seeing those realized on the big screen, or falling in love with a cartoon and then seeing it become live action. Maybe not so much, from live action movie to some other media form. But there are those. I was going to say, one thing that strikes me about, why you may get into those animated characters in the Star Wars universe versus the CW live action is because those CW live action characters are very much timeless. Like of course, those actors are going to grow older, but their stories are snippets in a basically an infinite history because. While I don't like it, the fact of the matter is that at least for Marvel and DC, like characters don't really age, right? They are timeless, and we expect that they will go on for a period of time and then be rebooted, right? But Star Wars, what you're watching happens in a specific era of history in that universe, and so those stories begin and end, and those characters only persist for a limited period of time. And the last thing I'm going to say before I kick this over to somebody else is. I know for me, for Star Trek versus Star Wars, one of the reasons, because you mentioned you lean more towards Star Trek, one of the reasons I lean more towards Star Trek is Star Wars is a very messy universe. And we're just now coming into a notion where the greater universe, like the story of Luke and Leia and that core group has always been relatively controlled when you talk about the extension into the novels, right, of the Star Wars extended universe, but everything else is very messy, and it was kind of been a free-for-all. So this is maybe the first notion where they've kind of expanded that universe beyond the core characters that we all know, and it's fairly well organized so that you don't feel it's just a complete muddle. Star Trek, highly organized, right?
Yes.
There are star dates pinning down the specific point in the timeline where various events occur. So I've always felt like that was more organized and orderly. So I don't know, Dave. I mean, thoughts along similar lines?
Yeah. So similar lines. I think I kind of get where Jonathan's feeling. One of the things I think you liked about Rebels is that it was more true to like original Star Wars, and I feel like Clone Wars is going another direction that people were like, no, this isn't like, based on what it was meant to be. And in my feelings, like I'm more of tend to be a purist when I watch stuff, so I'm always hesitant of any extended universes or reboots, because in my mind, like, oh gosh, some other guy wants to do his take, and he's gonna, my saying is, why break what's not broken, And there was nothing wrong with the original Star Wars, and then I feel when they made the prequels, they just broke it, and now I feel like they're fixing it again with Force Awakens. I've heard of people saying that they want a do-over of the prequels. So, anyways, I'm just very critical when it comes to reboots and anything extended universe. Honestly, I feel reboots. I feel like that Marvel, has done a good job, as they're retelling stories. I feel DC's done a pretty good job at that, but I feel like, maybe this is just me, but I feel like DC has gotten darker over the years. I don't know, but
no, it has.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my say on it. Is that I think anytime anybody tries to extend it, I'm worried that they're gonna lose the main focus.
Right. So we're at the 15-minute point. I want to pass the talking stick over to Peter Morrow, because I'm sure he's going to come at us from somewhere we cannot foresee. So, Peter, what do you want to kick around the campfire tonight?
Jack Reacher.
Oh, nice.
Guilty pleasure or not guilty. I'm not guilty about it at all.
So have you read the books?
No, I haven't. I didn't know there
Why
were.
did they
Now that I
cast
do.
Tom Cruise? Oh God.
Why wouldn't you cast Tom Cruise? That
I
guy's an
don't
action
like
star.
him.
So I've heard this from my father-in-law, who was a reader of the book. So apparently, like one of the big greats against Tom Cruise, besides the Scientology stuff. So here's my feeling too. Before I mention this, 'cause, a little bit of this I might be a hypocrite about. So look, whatever his personal preferences is or are or whatever, he maybe he's a kook. Many great artists are. I'm not saying he's a great artist, but dude is absolutely unquestionably one of the hardest working guys in Hollywood.
Definitely.
His stunt work.
He does his own stunts.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. So I guess one of the major detractions I've heard has been, Jack Reacher in the books is supposed to be like this 6 foot tall, like linebacker built kind of dude, and you cast Tom Cruise, who is well known to be fairly diminutive. Just look for any picture of him next to Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
But so I guess because I didn't read the books, that doesn't bother me. And like I said, I know that the guy's a hard worker, and I've liked most of the Mission Impossibles. But I will have to say that up until the footage that I've now seen from Wonder Woman, and her showing in BVS, I was absolutely against the casting of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, primarily because I'm like, Wonder Woman is an Amazon. Amazons are not little dainty, slight women. They are big, powerful women who could clearly kick your butt when you see them just walking down the street, right? So I felt that for certain female characters, like if they ever cast like Power Girl, for instance, like they need to have a stature and a build that reflects that character. So that's my own 2 minutes.
I'm just excited. I'm going to try and get out and see the Jack Reacher and Never Go Back sequel. Looks like it's just going to be another fun romp, which is what I like. As far as books and or other media being turned into movies, anytime you read a book, whether it be comic book or novel, you get a picture of everybody that's in it. And back to one of our old podcasts where we discussed The Martian, and the conversation came up with who would you have casted. I mean, I would have casted Matt Damon as Mark Watney, but not everyone would agree with that necessarily. And it's always interesting when you take that media and convert it to a movie. When you go from book to movie, no one is ever going to be happy. 100% happy. Because we all have these ideas of what it should be in our mind, whether or not that's what the original author intended or anything like that. It's just interesting. I mean, if you read Jurassic Park and then went and saw the movie, you were probably thought about walking out. And that was one of the biggest movies of the year, back in 94? Yeah. I mean, I saw it and I thought, wow, this is a waste of my money.
So,
because I read the book first.
So the first Jack Reacher movie, Peter, did you feel there was much to that movie beyond Tom Cruise?
It was a popcorn movie. It's all it needed to be. John Wick is being filmed for a sequel right now, and that's just a popcorn movie to me. It doesn't need to be anything else.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm excited about. It's a movie I don't have to think about. I can just go and have fun and enjoy it. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. And I'll have to read the books now that I know they exist.
So I've been playing a lot of games.
Okay.
Do you need? Do you have a problem?
I know. Well, maybe. I'm definitely eking back to it. I have not pulled an all-nighter, not directly due to games. I did pull a near all-nighter when I was putting together my gaming PC, which is being used to play some of those games right now. Flipped around camera always does me wrong. So sit over there. Yeah. There's the case right there. It's shut down now. If it were running, you would hear the freaking jet engine behind me on the tarmac. So yeah, and it's weird. A lot of pundits are saying like this is the greatest year of gaming ever, and I think that's mostly because people have their gumption up about VR. And that's great. Maybe it's cool. I have not seen some like blockbuster game that like everybody must go play on VR. There are some interesting science experiments going on. I'm still, in the mainstream, and the thing that's interesting is, I bought Forza Horizon 3 and Gears of War for, I think I mentioned this in the last segment on the Luke Cage show. And then I was like, oh man, I really got to like pound through a lot of these games like before all the other stuff comes out this holiday season. And I look at the release list and I'm like, wait, there's nothing coming out the remainder of the holiday season. Like there's Battlefield 1 and like that's it. So actually, in a strange way, I spent a lot of time last week going back to play Destiny, which were any of you guys a big player of that game?
I haven't played it in a while, actually. I used to be really gung-ho about it, and now I haven't logged in I don't know, 4 months.
Right. And it's
I think I'm a bit more simple-minded in gaming right now. The only thing I've been playing really has been Stardew Valley.
So, well, what's funny is I went and looked at the PlayStation 4 release list this week, and basically it's like Battlefield 1 and a lot of
Yeah.
things like the game you just mentioned, Dave. Like nobody wanted to release anything in the same week as that 800-pound gorilla. So I thought it was pretty interesting. But, well, kind of like maybe not. I mean, Peter, you spent a lot of time in it. Destiny was a game that really I was a little bit turned off to because of the social aspect of it, right? Like you want to play with your friends, but again, my friends are these guys who get in and play a game and they're level 40 like in a month. And I'm like, dudes, I'm not sinking that much time in this one game every week. Like I've got other stuff to play. So
oh my gosh, I totally can relate to you because I have some friends that are like that. I'm like, fuck's sake.
Yeah, I had a weird journey with Destiny. I probably the same journey a lot of people had with it is that when it first came out, which they call Vanilla Destiny, when it first came out, I just didn't get it. I played, I was like, I don't understand this light thing. I don't get why I'm in this tower with all these people. What is this gun I'm holding? The story made no sense. And I'm getting more to the point in my gaming lifestyle where I'm less focused on story and more on actual like how much fun I'm having. Whereas before I was like, I have to have a really good story. And then I just put it away for a while. And then they had the huge Taken King update last year. And my brother, huge Destiny player, not as much anymore, but he was a huge Destiny player. And he told me you have to get in because they just revamped a lot of the systems and everything. And so when I got back into it, I really liked the Taken King. And that was the first time I really dove in. The cutscenes were really neat. The story missions had a focus. The system of leveling was basic. You get experience, you level up. I was like, I get it now. And I think I saw you post about it the other day, Agasicles, where you said it is one of the most fluid mechanically, in terms of shooting wise, it is one of the best in this generation, I'd say. I can't think of another game that has some of the best shooting mechanics ever in a game. But then once I got through the Taken King stuff and leveled up to 40 with 2 characters and then up to 34 with the 3rd character class type, I just kind of gave up on it. I was like, I don't want to run through it again. And I played Destiny solo most of the time. I never did the raids. I never really got into the multiplayer side of it. That side never really attracted me. And I think that's where Destiny makes most of its money, really is. And the most of the attraction comes from that side of it too.
So my thoughts and my journey were very similar to yours, Jonathan. And I would just say I would invite you to
go back.
Yeah, to go back and it's going to sound completely too heavyweight when talking about games, but like step outside yourself. Like right, like and I'm with you. Like I've gone through the arcs, right? Like originally, like as a kid, I was very much into the single player experience. I didn't want my friends coming over and sitting beside me on the couch. Like I'm like, dude, I need to pound through this single player campaign. Like you're welcome to sit here and watch, but I do not want to play 2-player, right? And then I found like PC multiplayer, and I just like to sit on a LAN and like play with buddies like in the same room, right? And then the Xbox came along, and I tried playing online, but it was back in the day when like there weren't prevalent voice comms, and you had to be like subscribed to like 15 different services because every game was hosted like on a different server. And then I found the Xbox, and that made online multiplayer like incredibly easy. And there was this great renaissance of online multiplayer with the Xbox 360 until Call of Duty Modern Warfare ruined it all. And then in this generation, like I backed off to like I don't want to play in public rooms and like meet new people because they're all assholes now.
I know.
But and now I just play with my friends, right? And now there is no social, like there's a marginal social aspect. But so I went into Destiny like focused on single player to play that single player campaign. I played multiplayer very rarely, even though I have 2 copies of Destiny, one on PS4, one on Xbox One. But I went back to it this time and I played some of the single player, but then I played Strikes, and like I'd never played Strikes in the first.
The Strikes are great.
And they're awesome. Like it's just, again, because now I'm not focused on finishing the game, right? It's just I go in and it's unfortunate now that like I mentioned this in the video game chat the other day. Like there's such a lack of like talking, right, in multiplayer games now. I guess a lot of people feel like I do, and so you go into a game in your party, and that's who you talk to. You don't open your speech channel to the rest of the world. So I go into these strikes, and there are some great, like, man, I played a strike the other night, and I went onto this board, and the two guys I went in with, I don't know whether they were just trying to level and grind, but they like went completely different paths. Like they weren't following the strike path. They went completely different paths. They were finding enemies that were off axis from the main target route. I went back and found one of them. Never found the other guy. Played with him for a little while, but he would just stop. And I guess he was probably sorting gear. He would just stop and like sit for like 3 minutes, like sorting his gear or leveling up or whatever. I don't know what was going on with him. And I was like, it's late. It's like getting towards 2:00 in the morning. I'm just going to go play this strike. And if I die, then I'm just done. Right. And I was in the middle of a firefight, and a dude just came up, right? Not in my fire team, just came up. And I was like, oh, this dude's rolling through the primary strike, so I'm going to roll with him. This guy, like, he would come and revive me, like, every time, like, in the face of withering enemy fire. Like, and I'm like, dude, just and I wish I could talk to him, because I was like, dude, no, this is one of those times you just let me die, right? Let me bleed out, I'll respawn. But he would come across the field of fire and get to me. I would then started going back and getting him. There was one point where we were fighting the tank, and this is part of the legacy strike list, where it's the tank right outside.
I hate that tank.
Right, yeah. Right. He's like the first tank you meet in a strike, and he's sitting up on this concrete platform outside an access door, and there's an open field in front of him with lots of rolling hills and cover. But this guy, like, there was one time we're fighting this thing, and this guy like bunny hops across that concrete walkway. We're all the way on the left-hand side. I'm shooting at the thing. He bunny hops across the entire walkway, like drawing the guy's fire, right, to allow me to have the maximum opportunity to shoot him from. And I'm like, dude, you're awesome, right? So I wish we could talk about it longer, but we do need to wrap up. But I think it's one of those games where there's some secret sauce in there that really show that Bungie has designed a game with a lot of legs and a lot of longevity, because you can come at it from lots of different vectors. And it's just, for people who want to do one thing or two things, I think you can do that, and you can play it for a limited time. You can come back to it. For people who want to do like 18 different things, you can do that as well. So I don't know.
Well, maybe I need to get back onto Destiny then. Check it out again.
I would. It's one of those. I talk about these games that will always be in my backlog, right? Like, I may never finish them, but they'll always. Left 4 Dead is always going to be in my backlog, right, for a very long time. These Forza games will be in my backlog for a very long time, because I can always go race. I have that feeling about Destiny too, until backwards compatibility. Yeah, until at some point we go so far that backwards compatibility eats my lunch and Destiny's not available. But it's been a pretty awesome week in gaming just because of that experience. So
yeah.
Anybody have any last minute alibis before we wrap up and get out of here?
I was not where you think I was 12 hours ago. It's a pretty weak alibi.
and just to know, like, how the last thing I'll just know is, like, I've never been, and I've said this in the video game chat, I've never been a multiplayer player,
right.
And the Overwatch, I can't speak any more highly of it than I already have. I've already declared it as my game of the year.
Are people talking in that game, or are you going in a party?
Oh, people do talk, but they're very nasty. They're the ones you're talking about. Like, they're just like, you suck. How could you pick that class? No, we're on the attack. So I just mute them.
Yeah, you're like, dude, the match hasn't even started yet.
Yeah, I completely mute. I just mute them, and most of the time I'll either play with my brother, or if I'm not playing with my brother, when I'm by myself. The beauty of Overwatch is that the world that they've created is so colorful, and there is a story being told within the maps, and the character interactions with the voice lines and stuff. The characters are just, it's not here's a character, you build them, and everybody kind of looks the same. they talk and they're different. They have personalities and stuff. And I just love that about it. It just connects me to it. I don't need to be hooked up to. It almost feels like a single player experience, but you're just with other people there, and it's great. And that's what makes it spontaneous too. I'd never thought when I saw this game coming out, my brother was hyped about it because he likes multiplayer games. I was like, no. And I jumped in, I gave it a shot, and wow, it is one of my favorite games I've ever played. Ever played.
Nice. So I know we should be wrapping up, but I feel a little bit guilty because all three of us had some window here. So Dave, anything you want to kick around the campfire for a few minutes?
No, I feel guilty because I had my huge console war thing last time or the time before that.
Oh, that was awesome, though.
Yeah, dude, that's what led to this format.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. I just I agree with you. If you're gonna do Overwatch, have a friend, because if you meet strangers, cancer.
Yeah, definitely. But and then just on a note you mentioned earlier, I don't think this is the greatest year of gaming. I think that's a stretch. I think it has been an excellent year for games. And gaming is taking a step forward with VR. VR is not what people are making it out to be just yet. Give it time. Give it time, please.
Right.
But yes, it's been a very good year for games.
Right.
I've been very impressed.
Right. And even, it's funny and very telling, right? Because again, people have touted that this is. And while I'm talking, I'm gonna. Peter made a GWW reference here just a few minutes ago, so I just want to point people to this classic.
Oh.
So what Peter mentioned before was the infamous Two Guys, a Girl, and a Scene podcast, episode 10. I heard it wrong, which is where we discussed The Martian, our viewing room episode. There's Mr. Jonathan Reyes. So if you do want to go check out that gem, there it is. You can see the URL there at the top.
Nostalgia.
Yeah, no doubt. 10 episodes. That's almost a year's worth of programming.
Yeah.
For like a monthly. That's like almost as many episodes as Luke Cage.
Yeah, 13, 3 shy, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a great conversation, by the way. I'm glad you.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was my favorite.
Well, that was the one you were on. So, I don't even know what the hell I was talking about.
I guess there is one thing that has been on my mind in the game world. I do think that things like shooters need to get better, evolve. But there's some things that I feel like they've evolved, and I'm just like, I can't believe they did that. For example, like, I hate to bring this up, but Pokemon Sun and Moon, it's just like they've gone so far advanced, and I'm just like, they should really just go back to 16-bit now, because they got rid of gyms, and now it's like they're called island challenges, and they got rid of they didn't add on to Mega Evolutions. They got these things called Z Evolutions, and it's so weird now. It's like, I don't know what to think about Pokemon. Just the next thing they're gonna try is Pokemon on the NX, and I don't know.
It is a game industry wide pandemic, right? And and this is what I've probably spent a lot of time railing about this year. I get it. Games need to evolve. You need to bring in new players. You need to keep things interesting and fresh. But there needs to be room in the market for things that just package what has been done well, and improve I'm completely fine with a Forza every year that just improves the graphics.
Yeah.
Right? The Project Gotham Racing series went away because, it was theoretically superseded by racing games that were doing more complex, better things. The first-person shooter, has become all about, like, leveling and perks.
It's an RPG at this point.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Modern Warfare. Like this is. I mean more about that historical schism in history beyond just the fact that it brought in the frat boy element of misogyny and racism that now pervades the online community, particularly on consoles.
Oh, no. I have to disagree there.
How's that?
You played enough Blizzard games. It's always been around.
It's bad.
Yeah,
I'm learning that with Overwatch.
So I guess my feeling is that it is an unfortunate byproduct of the democratization of online gaming, right? That Warcraft is of a certain threshold of needing to understand game mechanics and also that monthly fee that was originally there. But when you went to Xbox Live, you went to an annual fee. That price pain point is much less frequent. But it also created this outgrowth of gamers that, for instance, only play Madden and Call of Duty. And those are the two games they buy every year. They maybe get the free stuff from Xbox Live, but the rest of that library just lays fallow, and that's the only thing they play. And they have personalities to fit. So at any rate, there's just this ongoing trend of like overly convoluting games that are unnecessary. And I feel you, Dave. I think that's what you're talking about. But I'm like, I just need to like boot up a game, go into a lobby. How many games do you play these days multiplayer that just have a lobby? You just show up. There's 16 people. You vote on or pick what map you want to play, and you just go. Right? Everything is just like super overly convoluted. There's this 2 to 4 hour friction, right, to even get over the hump to get to multiplayer. Forza Horizon 3, like I kind of just experienced this a little. Bought it on PC. It's a cross-buy game, right? You buy it on PC, you get it on Xbox. Played probably like 3 to 4 hours up front. Was convinced for the first 3 to 4 hours that I'd paid for DLC that I didn't have. Right? Searched all over the game trying to find the DLC. Couldn't see it. Well, after you hit so when you go into like the menu screen, there's all sorts of tabs that are grayed out that you don't have access to. You hit the 4 hour point, all this stuff opens up, kind of like things did in Destiny, right? And then suddenly I was like, oh, my DLC was over here in this section that I couldn't see. Thank you very much for not telling me up front and making it overly complex and forced me to expend time Googling all over the place trying to find out if this was a system problem that people were having. So sorry to end on a rant, but
well, hey, Halloween's coming up, guys, and you know what that means, right? More Ash versus the Evil Dead.
do you watch that show, Pete?
I love that show. There is nothing good about it. It is a terrible show, and I love it.
Guilty pleasure?
No, I'm not guilty about it. It's just a pleasure.
Nice. All right, guys. If there's no other major tangents we need to follow, I'm voting that we go ahead and wrap up for tonight.
Cool.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, it's 11:15, 17. All right. So thanks so much for joining in. Just in case you're wondering, we're planning on keeping this format. So this is just going to be kind of a campfire chat. There was originally a plan to make this like a weekly news show. But we kind of got jammed up with also wanting to do Luke Cage and combining two different shows. One Dave and I were doing, and then one that Jonathan, Peter, and I were doing, just so it wasn't two podcasts during the week. That has kind of like the creative process, right? You jam a bunch of people together in a creative endeavor, and you come out with something that you completely didn't foresee or envision. But the first week I was trying to get the tweet out for the live show, and Dave stepped in and just kind of started vamping. And we just felt like we're just going to keep it this way instead of making it some overly convoluted, like I just ranted about the video game industry, podcast. So we're just going to get together like from week to week. We're going to give one person the baton to start the show off with a discussion topic, and it's just going to be like whatever it winds up being. So until people scream at us that they don't like it, and then we'll think about changing it. So
if they don't like it.
Screw them. That's right. Screw you.
Hopefully it'll be a healthy compromise between those two extremes. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining in. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at Agasicles, Stamas, at Edric Santero, at Jonathan Reyes, or at Comic Book 90. Thanks so much for joining in for episode number 3, and we are out of here.